I'm 34, married for 8 years, and I thought my life was finally settling into something stable. My husband, Dean, 36, and I just bought our first house about 6 months ago. Nothing fancy, but we worked our butts off for it. Years of saving, cutting corners, skipping vacations. It was supposed to be our fresh start after a really tough stretch. Then my younger brother Nathan moved in. He's 30, recently divorced, and completely blindsided by it. His wife cheated, drained their accounts, and left him with nothing but debt and a suitcase of clothes. He came to me crying. He's always been the sensitive one. There was no way I was going to turn him away. So we let him move into the guest room for a little while. Dean wasn't thrilled, but he agreed. He knows how close I am with Nathan. We were raised by alcoholic parents, so it's always been kind of us against the world. Dean's never really gotten it, but he tried to be understanding. The first 2 weeks were fine. Nathan mostly kept to himself, helped out around the house, made dinner a few times, and stayed out of the way. He and Dean weren't exactly best friends, but they were civil. Then things started to shift. It was little things at first. Dean would come home from work and barely say 2 words to either of us. He'd go straight to our bedroom, door shut. I chalked it up to stress. He's got a demanding, and Nathan being around probably didn't help. But then I started noticing how tense Nathan became for Dean was in the room, like he was walking on eggshells, and not in the I'm a guest way, the something is wrong way. Last Friday night, Dean stayed late at work, or at least that's what he said. I fell asleep waiting for him. Around midnight, I woke up to use the bathroom and passed by the living room. The TV was on, the couch was empty. Then I saw a door close. Nathan's door. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe he went to the kitchen. Maybe he was just watching TV and went back to bed. But something about it felt off. And the next morning, Nathan was gone. I mean, gone. His stuff, his laptop, his clothes, everything. No note, no goodbye. Just gone. I figured maybe he had a breakdown or got triggered by something and needed space. I texted him, called him, tried every number I had. Nothing. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I found under the couch cushion 2 days later, when I was vacuuming. It was a folded-up piece of notebook paper, kind of crumpled, like someone wrote it fast. My name wasn't on it, but I knew immediately who wrote it, and what it said made my blood run cold. The handwriting was Nathan's. I'd recognize it anywhere. The note was short, rushed, and a little smudged, like it had been handled too many times or maybe even cried over. It read, "I didn't come here to cause trouble. I thought I could handle it. I was wrong. Please don't trust him completely. Something's not right. I'm sorry for leaving like this. N." I must have read it 10 times in a row, trying to make sense of it. Don't trust him. Who? Dean? The man I married? The guy who stood beside me through job losses, miscarriages, family drama? What could Nathan possibly mean by that? At first, I wanted to believe it was just Nathan spiraling. He had been through hell. Maybe the divorce broke him more than I realized. Maybe he misinterpreted something, or let his paranoia get the best of him. But something about the note, it didn't feel irrational. It felt careful, measured, like he meant every word. I didn't say anything to Dean, not right away. Instead, I quietly started trying to piece things together. I checked our security camera footage, which I usually never do, just to see if it caught Nathan leaving. But when I pulled up the files for that night, there was nothing, just a gap. Our front porch cam stopped recording at 10:47 p.m. It didn't resume again until 4 a.m. That's never happened before. The system works on a loop, and it backs up to the cloud every hour. But for that window of time, nothing. Just black screen. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it wasn't adding up. That's when I decided to check the inside camera, the one facing our living room, just in case of break-ins or deliveries. I opened the app, scrubbed through the footage from earlier that week, and finally landed on the night in question. At 11:03 p.m., Nathan walked into the living room, barefoot, holding something. Looked like a phone or wallet. He sat on the couch. Then, a few minutes later, Dean walked in. No coat, no keys, no sign that he'd just come from work. I felt sick. They talked. I couldn't hear what they were saying. The cameras don't have audio, but the body language was intense. Nathan was upset. Dean stood over him. Then he sat down beside him. Close. Too close. At one point, Dean grabbed Nathan's wrist, and Nathan tried to pull away. There was a long pause. Then Nathan stood up, walked off camera, and Dean just sat there, like nothing happened. At 11:32 p.m., Dean went into Nathan's room. He came back out 4 minutes later with a box under his arm. I haven't seen that box since. So now I'm here, with a note, a missing brother, a husband with a lie he hasn't told yet, and footage that doesn't make sense. And the sickest part? That night, when Dean climbed into bed with me, he smelled like Nathan's cologne. After watching the footage, I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just laid there beside Dean, listening to his breathing, trying to imagine what kind of conversation ends with my brother disappearing, and a box of his things vanishing into thin air, and that note. Please don't trust him completely. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning, Dean got up like nothing had happened. Made coffee, kissed me on the forehead, asked if I wanted eggs. I told him I wasn't feeling well. He shrugged, poured himself a mug, and sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone like everything was perfectly normal. I watched him carefully. I kept thinking, does he know I know? He didn't act like it. Around lunch, I told him I was thinking of reporting Nathan missing, just to see how he'd react. Dean paused mid-bite, then said, I don't think that's necessary. He's done this before, hasn't he? He just shuts down and disappears. You said so yourself. I had said that before, years ago, when Nathan dropped off the radar for a few days during college. But that was different. That wasn't after a warning note and missing surveillance footage. I nodded and said I'd wait a bit longer. But the second Dean left for the gym that afternoon, I pulled out my laptop and started digging. I emailed Nathan's work, just a casual message saying I was checking in on him. They responded within the hour. He'd called in sick 3 days ago. No one had heard from him since. No social media activity either. His phone still rang, but straight to voicemail. I tried calling 2 of his old friends. Nothing. One of them said they'd seen him briefly at a gas station a few weeks ago, but that he seemed off. He was hiding something. And then I remembered something. My brother kept journals. Dozens of them. He'd started when we were teenagers, said it was cheaper than therapy. I went straight to the guest room closet. Nothing. Not a single notebook. I looked under the bed, behind the dresser, even inside the air vent where he used to hide things when we were kids. Empty. That's when I remembered the box Dean carried out on the footage. It was shaped like one of those IKEA storage bins Nathan always used for his journals. If Dean did take it, where did it go? And then another thought hit me. The attic. Dean had spent an unusual amount of time up there last week. Said he was checking the insulation. I hadn't thought twice about it at the time. But now? I grabbed a flashlight and climbed up the ladder. At first, there was nothing but dust, old paint cans, and holiday decorations. But behind one of the storage trunks, under a canvas tarp, I saw a plastic storage bin. The kind you'd never think to look at twice. And when I opened it, journals. All of Nathan's journals. And one of them was open, right on top. The most recent entry was dated 2 days before he disappeared, and it was addressed to me. The handwriting was frantic, more jagged than usual, like he'd written it in a panic. I took a deep breath and started reading. If you're reading this, it means I didn't have the guts to tell you everything to your face, and I'm sorry for that. I really am. But I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to explain what I've seen. I could feel my chest tightening with every word. Dean isn't who you think he is. I don't mean that in some dramatic way. I mean it literally. He's been lying to you, to everyone, for a long time. I don't even know how deep it goes, but I know what I saw. 2 weeks ago, I came home early and found Dean in your office, on your laptop. That's not weird, I know, but he wasn't working. He had some kind of file open that looked encrypted, like weird hacker-level stuff, code, names, timestamps. I only caught a glimpse before he slammed it shut and said he was checking your tax documents. But why would he need your password for that? Why would he need 3 different flash drives? Flash drives? I stood up so fast I hit my head on a rafter. Dean had been so careful with his things. Always locking drawers, always backing up files, always clearing the browser history, even though I never really checked. I sat back down and kept reading. I didn't say anything at first. I figured maybe he was doing something behind your back, but not necessarily bad. Then I started noticing little things. He kept asking questions about my work, about the people I knew, about you. It felt off, like he was gathering info. So I followed him one night. I blinked. I know it sounds insane, but I did. I followed him after he said he was heading to the gym. He didn't go to the gym. He drove across town and parked outside an apartment building. Sat there for over an hour. No lights on, no movement. Just waiting. Then someone came out. A woman. Blonde. Maybe early 40s. She walked straight to the passenger side, got in, and they just sat there, talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but she was crying. He was holding her hand. I took a picture. Just one. It's in this journal. Back pocket. My hands shook as I flipped to the back pocket, and sure enough, there was a small folded photo. Grainy, but clear enough. It was Dean, sitting in the driver's seat, and next to him, some woman I didn't recognize. Her face was buried in her hands. He told her something. I could see her mouth move. She looked terrified. Then he reached into the glove box and handed her something. I swear it looked like money. A thick envelope. After that, she got out and walked away. I know how this sounds. I know you probably think I'm making things up or reading too much into it, but I've seen people like him before. Manipulators. Liars. I grew up with one, remember? Just be careful. There's something he doesn't want you to know, and I think he knows I saw too much. That's why I left. That's where the entry ended. I sat there in the attic for what felt like an hour, staring at that picture, reading the page over and over. It felt like my brain was splitting in two. One part of me couldn't believe Dean would be involved in something like this. But the other part, the part that's lived with him for 8 years, remembered all the strange little inconsistencies, the things I used to brush off, the secrets he always kept. the vague answers. And now Nathan was gone, and Dean had his journals, and I had a photo of my husband handing something to a crying woman in the dark. I climbed down from the attic in a daze, heart pounding, hands still clutching the photo. My legs felt like they were moving on their own. I tucked the journal under my shirt just in case and went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. I stared at the photo again. Dean's face wasn't visible, but I knew it was him. The jacket the shape of his hands. And that car? It was our car, no doubt about it. I zoomed in on the woman, trying to burn every detail into my mind. I didn't recognize her, but something about her looked familiar. Maybe it was her hair, or the way she hunched her shoulders. She looked broken, like she'd been carrying something too heavy for too long. I wanted to believe it was nothing. Maybe she was a coworker. Maybe it really was innocent. But why lie? Why delete the footage? Why hide the journals? Nathan wouldn't have left unless he felt seriously unsafe. He's not the dramatic type. He's been through way worse than this. And that warning in the note, it wasn't about catching someone cheating. It was deeper, colder. I flushed the toilet and ran the faucet to cover my movements, then quietly opened the back of the journal and slipped the photo into a zippered makeup pouch. I stuffed the journal behind the linen towels under the sink. Dean never touches those. Later that evening, I asked Dean what he was up to after work. He said he might swing by the gym or grab drinks with a few coworkers. I smiled, said I might run a few errands too, and then I followed him. I waited 20 minutes after he left, then got in my car and took the long way. My heart was in my throat the whole time. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew I needed confirmation, some kind of sign that Nathan hadn't lost it, that I hadn't lost it. He didn't go to the gym. He didn't meet coworkers. He drove straight to the same apartment complex Nathan mentioned in the journal. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. I stayed parked across the street with the engine off, watched as Dean just sat there in the car. Minutes passed. 10, 15, almost 20, and then, same woman. She walked out of the building with a manila envelope in her hand, climbed into the passenger seat. They didn't kiss. They didn't even hug. But her face, pale, eyes red, like she'd been crying for hours. She handed him something. He handed her the envelope, and then she got out and walked back inside. Dean drove off. I didn't follow him this time. I just sat there, frozen, because now I knew the truth. Nathan hadn't overreacted. Something was very wrong, and Dean was hiding more than just secrets. I got home just before Dean did and pretended everything was normal. I even asked about his drinks with coworkers, and he gave me a full story. Said Ryan from accounting was having trouble with his girlfriend, so they grabbed beers and talked it out. I nodded along, said, "That's nice of you." Inside, I was screaming, but I didn't want to confront him without more. I didn't know what the woman in the car meant to him. I didn't know what was in those envelopes. And if I asked too early, I'd blow everything. He'd get defensive, shut down, twist it like he always did when things got too real. So instead, I waited. I planned. The next day, while Dean was out again, same time, same gym excuse, I went back to the attic. I dug through more of Nathan's journals, hoping for something. A name, an address, anything. And buried in one of the older ones, I found it. A single page with a name written multiple times. Mara Jensen. It was underlined, circled, and next to it, the woman from the car? I jumped online and started searching. At first, nothing. No social media, no obvious hits. But then I dug deeper and finally came across a post on a forum for wrongful Mara Jensen, sister of a man named Kyle Jensen who'd been convicted of assault and battery 3 years ago, sentenced to 15 years. No prior record. The post said the case fell apart in court due to a lack of evidence, but somehow he was still convicted. There was a name listed under witness for prosecution. My stomach dropped. Dean Whitmore. My Dean. My husband. I stared at the screen for a long time, not even blinking. I couldn't process it. Dean had never mentioned part of a trial, mentioned this woman, never told me he'd testified in something that serious. Why would he hide it? Unless the story wasn't clean. I tried looking up the case records, but most of it was sealed. There were mentions, conflicting testimony, withheld footage, and a plea deal that was offered and rescinded at the last minute. The kind of legal mess that stinks of something rotten on. Nathan had written this name 3 times, circled it, and now that same woman was getting envelopes from Dean in the dark? I didn't know what to think. Was he blackmailing, or was she blackmailing him? Was he paying her to stay silent about something that happened in that case? Why was Nathan so I backed away from the computer and suddenly realized I wasn't alone. From the hallway, Dean's voice cut through the silence. I forgot my wallet. I spun around. He was standing in the doorway, staring at the screen, and his face was blank. Too blank. Not surprised. Not angry. Just cold. We stared at each other for a long moment, neither of us speaking. My hands hovered over the laptop like I could slam it shut fast enough to erase everything he saw, but it was too late. His eyes flicked to the screen, then back to me. Jensen? Calm, like he was asking about a grocery list. An answer. He stepped further into my heart started pounding so hard I could barely hear myself think. I said the first thing that came to mind. Why didn't you tell me about the trial? He shrugged. Didn't seem relevant. That answer felt like a punch. Didn't seem relevant. He moved closer. I stood up, instinctively sliding my body in front of the desk. I don't even know why. There was nothing left to protect. He knew what I'd seen. Dean didn't look angry. That made it worse. He looked like someone who'd already run this scenario through his head, like he'd been waiting for me to figure things out. You think I hurt your brother? He said almost lazily. I didn't. My throat was dry. I couldn't speak. He leaned on the dresser, arms crossed. Nathan got curious. Too curious. He started asking questions, digging where he shouldn't have. Same way you are now. I asked him finally, where Nathan was, what he did, where he went. Dean's jaw tensed for the first time. He left. That's all I'll say. It was the way he said it. Not like someone covering a crime, but like someone who knew he had leverage. Like he wasn't afraid of the truth, because he believed the truth would destroy me, not him. He was going to go public with things, Dean said. Stuff that's better left buried. You don't know what that trial was really about. You don't know who Kyle Jensen was tied to. You don't know who Mara is. I asked again, what was in the envelopes? He smiled, just barely. Insurance. He turned, opened the door again and looked back one last time. I'm not your enemy, but if you keep chasing this, you'll lose more than your brother. Then he left. I stood there shaking, the air in the room suddenly too thin. My knees gave out and I sat on the floor, staring at the laptop, the frozen search results, the old trial files, Nathan's photo peeking out of the makeup bag, and one thought kept echoing in my head. Dean wasn't warning me. He was threatening me. After Dean left the room, I sat on the floor for a long time, staring at the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't even panic. I just felt detached, like my body had gone numb to protect itself. The man I married wasn't just lying. He was involved in something dangerous, something tangled in legal cover-ups and whispered threats. And Nathan had tried to expose it. Now Nathan was gone, and Dean had made it clear I'd be next if I pushed too far. That should have scared me into silence. But instead, something inside me snapped. Dean thought I was weak. He thought I was scared, and maybe I was. But I wasn't helpless. I waited until the middle of the night, after Dean fell asleep. He always sleeps hard, one of the few blessings in this nightmare. I crept out of bed, grabbed the journals, the photo, the flash drives I found hidden in the attic earlier, and left. I didn't go to a friend's house. I went straight to a lawyer. Not mine, Nathan's. He had mentioned her once in passing years ago when he was trying to fight an issue with his landlord. She was sharp, relentless, and not easily scared off. I knocked on her door the second the sun came up. She opened it groggy, in a robe, but when I showed her the photo and Nathan's journal, and her face changed immediately. She didn't ask why I came. She asked how soon I could get her everything. So I did. I gave her the flash drives, the journals, the picture, all of it. She said she'd start digging, quietly, and then she asked something I didn't expect. Do you want to file a missing persons report? I froze. Technically, no crime had been reported. No body, no text from Nathan saying he was in danger, and the longer I waited, the colder the trail would get. But filing a report would put a target on Dean would. He'd feel it. He'd act. Still, I nodded. I filed it, because whatever happens now, I need the truth on record. If something happens to me, I want people to know who to look at, and the moment the report went through, Dean texted me. Just 3 words. We need to talk. I didn't reply to Dean's text. I didn't need to. The missing persons report was public now. His quiet control, the silent fear he'd been banking on, was unraveling, and I wanted him to feel it. That same day, the lawyer texted me, "Meet me. It's urgent." She had decrypted one of the flash drives. She was waiting for me in her office with a man I didn't recognize. He introduced himself as a former investigator, someone who'd worked on the Jensen case before being quietly removed. He didn't waste time. Whatever your husband was involved in, it goes deeper than just lying on the stand. He wasn't just a witness. He was paid to testify. My stomach dropped. He laid out everything. The inconsistencies in Dean's testimony, how he claimed to have witnessed an incident from a location that, based on time-stamped security footage, he couldn't have physically, and yet his version had helped convict Kyle Jensen. Apparently, Dean had been rewarded for his cooperation, a bonus payment, job promotions that made no sense given his qualifications, and the woman, Mara, been fighting it ever since, hiring private investigators, pushing for appeals, filing reports that never saw the light of day. Nathan. He had secretly contacted Mara 3 weeks before he moved in with. He didn't tell me, not because he didn't trust me, but because he knew Dean would be watching. The flash drives were copies of files Dean had taken from the computer and his own. Documents that linked his name to shell company, encrypted transfers, legal statements that were mysteriously excluded from trial. It was everything Mara had been trying to prove. And Nathan? He had been trying to help her. That's why he disappeared. Before I left the office, the investigator gave me one more thing, a voicemail. It was dated the night Nathan vanished. He must have left it with the lawyer as insurance. I pressed play. It was his voice. Calm, but tired. If anything happens to me, tell my sister I'm sorry. I should have told her sooner. I didn't expect things to move this fast. Dean knows. He knows I found the drives. He's not who she thinks he is. Please, just make sure she knows I was trying to protect her. My hands were shaking. Nathan knew he was in danger. He tried to warn me. And now I was next on Dean's radar, and I had proof of everything. But the part that broke me the most wasn't the cover-up. It was realizing the man I married would have let me burn right alongside him. I left the lawyer's office that day with everything backed up in 3 places: cloud, drive, and a burner phone tucked into my purse like a loaded weapon. I knew the second Dean saw me again, he'd know the game was over. He wouldn't rage. He wouldn't shout. No, Dean was the kind of man who smiled through destruction. Quiet, polished, careful, and that made him dangerous. I didn't go home right away. I drove around for hours, circling neighborhoods I didn't recognize. Windows down just to feel the air and remind myself I was still free. For now. Eventually, I ended up parked outside a 24-hour diner, sipping lukewarm coffee I didn't remember ordering, rehearsing what I was going to do next. Then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. 1 voicemail. I didn't want to check it, but I did. It was Dean. His voice was tight, slower than usual. Too calm. I know you filed the report. I know where you've been. I'm not mad. Just disappointed. There was a pause. You still don't understand what this is. What you're walking into. These people don't care about you. They'll throw you away the second they get what they want. You think you're fighting for justice, but you're just a piece on their board now. Another pause. This time longer. You have until tomorrow morning to delete everything. All of it. Or I talk. Then he It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a deal. I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't back down either. The next morning, I went straight to the police, with my lawyer. With the photo, the journals, the drives, the voicemail from Nathan, the new voicemail from Dean. Everything. I told them about the trial, the woman, the payments, Nathan's disappearance. I didn't hold anything back, and for once, it worked. The officers didn't roll their eyes. They didn't dismiss me. The detective assigned to the case looked like he'd already heard whispers about the Jensen case. Maybe my timing was lucky. Maybe the dominoes were already lined up. But something shifted. By the time I got home that evening, there were 2 unmarked cars outside the house. Dean was already gone. Inside, nothing looked touched, except one thing. On the kitchen table, placed neatly on a folded dish towel, was my wedding ring. Underneath it, a single scrap of paper. You made your choice. I made mine. That was a week ago. They still haven't found Nathan. But now there's an official investigation. Into Dean, into the trial, into the shell companies and those buried payments. Mara Jensen reached out to me 2 days ago. She cried on the phone. Said no one ever believed her. Until now. And Dean? No one knows where he is. But I know this. He'll resurface. People like him always do. Only now I'll be ready.